Yeah, all the way down. And so,
Okay, can you, oh, good, you can hear, I can hear me, can you hear me? Yes, 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 great, great, great. Thank you, thank you. Thank all you dummies for coming. There are a lot of us in this group, aren't there? So this is wonderful, and we so appreciate Scott being willing to come and help enlighten us on all the wonderful things that we can do with our smartphones. So we'll get to that in just a bit here. I have a couple of people I would like to thank. I'd like to thank Ray Mahoney.
Yeah.
Ray designs all of our posters week after week, and we so appreciate it. Thank you, Ray. We want to thank Fluffy Fortivo. Thank you, Jack, out there. We love to and they've been very, very welcoming, so we really appreciate that, Jim. Let's see. I want to thank Al, who is our AV guy, who already left to go back and get married, I think. I thought he said get married. Are you there, Al? Where is he? Mary's here. He's back. He is here week after week helping us.
we could have done this without Al.
You are. Yes, I thought he was getting married. No, he went to get married. Married. Yes, and I want to thank Libby back at the door. She's here every week to relieve us of our little fun. We are in need of a couple of presenters. We really would like to have a geologist come, and wouldn't that be interesting to learn all about all of the rocks and how things happen in our big San Andreas fold out there and all that. So if any of you are at all expertise in geology or know someone here in the city that is, would you please let me know. We've been looking for a geologist and have not found one yet. And the other thing we're looking for is I'd love to do a program on the San Carlos night sky. And so we would love to have an astronomer too. So if anybody knows one about astrology, Bill, I bet you know all about astrology.
Astronomy.
Astronomy. Thank you.
I do, and I am.
I'm gonna like this club.
Yes. Yes. So, and then the only other thing I have is next week we are having a symposium here, if you will, a panel discussion with a couple of our local doctors, the president of Rescate, Jesse, who is our wonderful head of Rescate Services, will be here, and they'll be conducting this little symposium on the healthcare, hospitalization, and if it doesn't work out, what do you do if the worst happens here? And you know, I think that is a bit of a concern to all of us. I know that we do have a grief committee, I believe. I haven't heard much about it lately, but I think that they're in operation. What do you do if the worst happens? So come and join us next Thursday night. That night, the proceeds will go to Rescate. So thank you all again for coming. We thank Scott for being willing to do this. Scott, thank you so much.
Hi, everybody. Dare I put my drink next to all this equipment?
Oh, send it on the computer.
Set it on the computer, thank you. You know, that's what we used to do with those old CD-ROM drives. They were drink tray holders. You just set your drink out there. Is this, hello? Okay, cool. Well, I'm Scott Stimson. Let me, is this working? Is this on? There we go. Hello.
Scott, hold it right up to your mouth.
Okay, how's that? Right there?
That's better.
I'm Scott Stimson, and I see a lot of people that I recognize and a lot of people that I don't. If you don't know who I am the head nerd over at International Computer Solutions. It's a business that was founded with my sister-in-law and my wife, and we've been offering services to this community for over 20 years. Wow. So if you haven't heard of us, you hear of us now. I'm also well known as an interminable guest host speaker of the San Carlos Computer Club. And I see a lot of clubbers in this crowd. Thank you for showing up. I think they knew I was going to be a little nervous doing this, and so they showed up to give me some support. The computer club meets every Tuesday from 9:15 to 10:15-ish at Tequila's, and anyone is welcome to join us. If you come and sit at our table, then you are a member of the San Carlos Computer Club. We record those things and we put them up for posterity. We have a website, scclub.org, and if you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, go look on that website. And you'll see we do a podcast. Every meeting is recorded. You can download it into your phone. Maybe not after this course, but the next one, you'll be able to do something like that. I'm also affectionately known as Yuya's husband. Some of you probably know my wife, Yuya.
Senor Yuya.
Yeah, Yuya is a pretty well-known face around here. She grew up in this community. She is the owner and administrator of my business, as well as she's famous for dancing with Las Adictas del Valle and with the Riscate Melodrama. She offers a bunch of services with our business as well. And if you're looking for information about that, her and my partner Sony have showed up, and they're in the back here. And they do things like computer repair, but also immigration, labor, trust consulting, financial bookkeeping for organizations and private people, bill pay, stuff of that nature. Pardon me. So if you have any interest in any of that kind of stuff, they're going to be here afterwards, and I'll be here. You can answer. I can answer questions. They can answer questions about that kind of stuff. We're just happy to be invited. Okay, smartphones for dummies. I'm glad to see you all made it.
Some of us are too dumb to get here.
You're not here yet. They can funnel in the back. Those who know me know I have a very casual style. I've been doing the computer club for, well, I've got recordings that go back to 2009, but the computer club's been around since about 2000, 2001. My style is one where I kind of banter back and forth with people around a table. And so this is a little different for me. Actually, yeah, it's a bit different for me. And I'm losing my train of thought. And what I was going to say is that if you see me up here stammering, I'm lost for something to say, feel free. That's your cue to hold up your hand. And I would love to answer your question to help me get back on track, okay? So if I don't call on you, it's nothing personal. Maybe it was a dramatic effect I was going for. And I don't want to forget to mention that you might have noticed I got a couple cameras here. My buddy's in the back taking video. Our goal really was to produce something that we could put up on YouTube. I really don't want anybody in this crowd feeling like they have to worry about taking notes or anything, especially there's a bar back there. You guys can just sit here and drink and listen to me. But if you find any value in this at all, I have 2 different channels that I'll put this video on, probably within a week or so. There's my business at internationalcs.net, and there is the San Carlos Computer Club, and I'll put a copy on both those channels. And those web addresses are just to make it easy to find them, youtube.scclub.org and youtube.internationalcs.net. All right, finally, Smartphone for Dummies with me, Scott Stimson. And before I go on, this was a large list of questions that Jan gave me. It was extensive and a little daunting. And I thought I could stand up here and just answer question for question, but I figure people want to go home at some point. A lot of the questions interrelated to each other, and some of them were actually the same question, just asked differently. So I figured the best thing to do would be to break it into topics. And one of those topics was just dialing. And I thought an easy way to hit a lot of your questions was to provide you guys with some information you could take home. And so this stuff here, some of this stuff's been known for a long time, and just it's like the secret dialing. It's the Rosetta Stone of dialing around San Carlos. The 800 numbers especially are a little confusing, but if you need to access, and sometimes we do access an 800 number in the United States from a Mexican landline or a Mexican cell phone, then this is the way you would get to it. Each one of these numbers corresponds to a different dialing pattern, but it's all written out there for you. And I'll just read off an example. If you're trying to reach an 800 number, in the States you'd normally dial it 1-800. In Mexico you would dial it 001-880. That switches Telmex's switch into the US's switch, and it's an 800 call. Now, you get charged at whatever it costs to dial the United States. So in many cases, if you've got brand new cell phone service or brand new Telmex service, you're getting free calls to the United States. So if you do this, yes, it does cost the same as whatever it costs to dial the United States. But the difference is these days, and what that means is in the past you would pay to call an 800 number in the States. Nowadays, we call the States for free, and so that means these calls are free as well.
From our landlines as well?
From your landlines and your cell phones, yeah. I just keep in mind when you do dialing like this, when I phrase it like that, if for some reason you're using a service where you have to pay to talk to the United States, you might end up paying for this call as well, because it is the same price. Any questions? Yes.
Does that go for Canada too?
Yes, it's the.
In Canada.
Yeah, I think I've got this right, but I think Canada and the United States shares the same collection of 800 numbers, the same dialing style, whereas Mexico doesn't. Mexico has proper Mexican 800 numbers, and that's why the confusion. So this is a corresponding chart of numbers. I also provided some other stuff here I thought would be helpful, like emergency numbers that people are always asking about, how to dial a Mexican cell phone. People get a little confused sometimes from a landline, how to dial a local Mexican cell phone, how to dial a national. If your friend has a cell phone from Hermosillo, you actually dial it differently from San Carlos. So yeah, you guys can look through this, take that home. I think I hit at least 10 questions on that list with this pamphlet, so that's done. Check that box. Yeah.
Regarding this pamphlet, on
Yes.
the middle page,
Yes.
if you're calling from Canada to Mexico, it says 011-52622.
Is that from Canada?
Yeah,
Does-
Canada or United States.
And that works.
No, it didn't work for me at all.
Okay.
I brought the cell plan home with me, and we had a visitor from Mexico, and she informed me if you put a plus in front of there, it'll work.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up.
That's necessary, actually.
I debated about putting the +1 or the +11 or the +011 on this. It adds a whole new element of confusion. But the plus has become a standard on cell phones. And so many of these dialings work on the cell phone as they are. This is the first time I've heard of one of these not working unless you use +1.
It would not work for me at all.
Yeah.
A month or so, and then she arrived with her husband, and she said, "Oh, you gotta put a plus," and she was using it, and it worked quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Yeah.
Is that specific to Apple or was it an Android?
Any phone.
Yeah, it's specific to a mobile phone that's trying to dial international. And all these numbers I tested on a US mobile phone, but I didn't try them on Canadian service. And so I'm surprised that this didn't work, but it doesn't surprise me that that worked.
Scott, you mentioned the calling from a Mexican landline.
Hey, I'm not
cell phone.
stammering yet. No, go ahead.
I think there used to be a charge for that. I'm not sure there still is or not.
There isn't. That's, you can call local cell phones for free. You can call
From
nationally for free, yes, on your landline. You can call nationally and the United States and Canada for free with the latest packages. I see a hand up there in the back.
Okay, on that plus, is it plus 011 or just plus
Just-
1?
Plus and-
I would think it would be plus
You have
11.
to dial the 0 twice to get the plus.
What?
Hold on. Now, let's get the situation sorted. It's from Canada with a Mexican cell phone
Mexican cell phone.
in Canada
If you take this plan home.
to call Mexico. Does anybody else fit this bill? You have a Mexican cell phone, you're taking to Canada and want to talk to Mexico. It does work if you use the plus.
There isn't like, you know,
Yeah.
It's the 0, it's the 0.
And plus zero, too, it's the same,
Right,
okay,
yeah.
but
So then you-
only sometimes it puts the plus in automatically, and sometimes it doesn't.
That's
But
right.
Right now, we can't use our phones as easy as we used to. And we have, the North American plan,
Okay.
and we have to now add one to call our contacts.
Yes.
Before we never did here.
Yes, and that's not going to change.
Yeah, but it did change, we didn't have it before.
I mean, it's not going to go back. It's not going to get less complicated. It's going to continue forward being that complicated. Yes, Jen?
So, let's save the rest of our questions on this.
I was just going to say, I really am not stammering yet. I'm not lost for things to talk about. And I did kind of design this so we can go through some topics and then we can have some question and answer afterwards. So if you guys don't mind, we'll keep moving forward. The last thing I wanted to say about this is I don't have any more of them. But if you are interested in these, we can make up more and have them in the office for you. So if you're looking for more of these, just stop by our office next week and we'll have some more of them. Let's move on.
Tell them where your office is, Scott.
We're on 151 Linda Vista. We're on that road that goes towards the water, right at the corner of the frontage road that you might take to Sagittarius. Say, for example, you were going to make the turn around the Glorieta and go down to Sagittarius. Then instead of going down the frontage road, you turn immediately to the right, and there's a road that goes straight towards the water. And our office is the fourth house on the right. There's a sign at the corner with an arrow pointing down there, and then we have some lonas, we have some banners out that say International Computer Solution. Okay, I wanted to take our topics, our questions, and break them into some topics that I could really work with. And so I've broken it down to hardware, common functions, texting, because even after 20 years, this is a topic in itself, and just some other stuff I thought would be helpful and answers some of your other questions. And afterwards we'll do questions and answers, and we'll do some app recommendations. I meant to mention that. I want to set some expectations right off the bat. We are really talking about a cell phone, a smartphone that is probably 3 years old. I mean, about everything we're going to cover here, you could expect from a smartphone that you purchased in 2006 and paid $200 or more for. I mean, that'll cover about the gamut of everything we're doing here.
Or more recent.
Or more recent, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go through some features that I expect you will have on your phone if your phone meets this criteria. I want to reiterate, I am a group-oriented presenter, and so if you start asking me questions, I'm going to answer them. I'm not going to get done with my presentation. I like the banter, but I'm also, Computer Club will tell you, I'm very unorganized. And I'm the master of a digression, so we could be here for hours if you get me into questions. The questions I was asked about smartphones in hardware related somewhat to microwaves and radiation, turning off a cell phone. I find that to be an existential question of what is off in this day and age. I've got some tips, and I think I can answer some questions about charging your phone. I think charging has changed, and most people aren't aware of how to behave with their devices. And SIM cards. People were asking me about SIM cards, and that for me just immediately makes me think about memory cards as well, because I think it's a little confusing which is which and what you use them for. And so we'll go over a little bit of that. And I'm going to fly through some of this stuff because I got a lot more information than this. As far as microwaves and radiation, this is the only slide I got. It just looks cool. That's why I put it up there. I did want to point out that the cell phone sits in an area of radiation, of radio waves, and it's all radio waves. That's that is considered non-ionizing radiation. This is really, so far, has not proven to be a health risk. And that's one of the concerns that people had on the questions. The non-ionizing radiation's biggest health risk is through heat. And you can see that the microwave is right there next to the cell phone, which makes for some funny stories when you think about the health of the cell phone. But what's important to remember is that the reason the microwave can do so much damage to tissue is because you're cranking so much power through it. It's not the waves, the microwaves. When we're talking about waves, we're talking about this size. And when you're talking about the difference between the cell phone and the microwave, you're talking about this size. And so you're throwing lots of current through a microwave, and that ionizing radiation is shooting focus directly at what you're trying to heat up. And the only damage it's doing is through heat. It's the same kind of thing, the kind of damage you would do if you put it over a fire or you put it in boiling water. There's no nuclear or kind of damage to expect from it. The cell phone does emit radiation. It does emit non-ionizing radiation from the antenna. The antenna is either a nub or it's a band around the phone. But again, when you think about it as being a heat issue, it's not a radioactive issue, it's a heat issue, then it really, you had a phone up against your cheek, you don't feel much heat against it. I think the biggest issue right now that's confusing is that back in the day when we weren't feeling comfortable with the cell phones, and we've recently discovered that the industry decided to hide their studies of whether this hurt your health. Their studies came up inconclusive, and so they felt like they didn't need to tell us that. And they didn't need to tell us that for 15 years. And now it's only recently come out, and it's reinvigorated this discussion of health issues. The real reason that they continue to go back to it for health is because the increased demand in cell phone usage, the longer calls, people holding it up to their head more often. I think the most important thing to take from what we've learned, and everything we've learned so far shows that there's less and less risk than was being assumed. I think the biggest thing that we've learned is that we need to regulate what industries are doing so that it's not a secret that we have to discover later, that we're just aware that all this is going on. I guess in a nutshell, my opinion is this isn't something you need to worry about right now. This is everything that all the experts that I've looked at, all the things I've looked at, nothing concerns me about the radiation that comes out of a cell phone. If there isn't any questions or any specific anything you want to add to this topic, I'm just going to move on because that's all I got. Let's go on to turning off a cell phone. This is an interesting question because we really don't think of turning off these devices or mini devices anymore. And so I think that when people ask me about questions, I had a bunch of questions about off, in the off position. Will my alarm go off if the phone's off? It makes me think, what is off, really, to you? Because it could be just a black screen. And in that case, we would really refer to that as a standby state or a sleep state. We wouldn't call it off. And at the same time, if the screen's on or you're using the phone, it's an awake state. It's ready to be used. So for the rest of our discussions here, we're going to talk about off as being powered down. When we say off, we're saying it's powered down. And the rest of the time, it's a standby state. It's just waiting to be used. It's waiting to ring. It's waiting to tell you that you've got an email. It's waiting for an instant message to come through. It's waiting for an alarm to go off. It's just in a standby or a sleep state. I also want to take a moment before we get any deeper and say that the way I teach people about technology is I ask them to focus on the concepts that we're thinking of. I don't want people to get caught up worrying about an exit box looking like an X, or the OK button now says submit. What we really need to focus on is not the exact way something's done, but what it is that you're trying to do. And that's why I put these two phrases up here. I use them a lot. There are different ways to do something. It's always the same something we're trying to do. So whether you're on an iPhone or you're on an Android phone or God forbid, you're on a Windows phone or a Nokia phone, what you're trying to do is always going to be the same. You're trying to set up your email, or you're trying to surf a web page, or you're trying to turn off your alarm or put it in a standby mode. But the vastness of the difference of these phones, I can't give you the exact way to do it. So it's up to you to focus on the concept and figure out how you do what it is you're trying to do. Somebody else is trying to do exactly the same thing. They just might do it a little different on their phone. You're also going to find in my slides here, I've got a lot of Apple stuff. I am an Android phone user. I do not have an iPhone, but it's easy to standardize on Apple stuff because you can say Apple and all their graphics are the same, all their contact lists are the same. It doesn't matter which Apple you have. All those iPhones, they all act exactly the same way. They have a huge market in the United States. In fact, is there a show of hands? Who has an Apple device here? Oh yeah, see, this is an Apple talk. The unfortunate thing is, if you're like me, you can't afford an Apple. They're pretty expensive phones. I would be hard pressed to try and talk you into a $1,000 phone, especially when I do everything I want with my $200 phone. But the Androids have a different style. Every one of them is different. A Samsung versus an Honor, it's got a whole different it's got a whole different interface. The dialer looks different. The control center looks different. So this is where concepts are important because you're always trying to do the same thing. It's just different, done differently. And in that vein, we're going to talk about powering off and on a phone and putting it in wake and sleep mode. And I'm going to start with the iPhone. And what you're looking for is the unique button on your phone. And on an iPhone, the unique button was, on the iPhone 4s and 5s, it was right on the top of the phone, all by itself. That's how you identified it as your power or your wake button. By the iPhone 6, they actually moved it to the right side of the body, and it's there for the 7. And then on the 8 and now the 10 phones, to actually turn off the phone, you're supposed to hold 2 buttons down. So this has changed in the Apple world. One button still reigns as king in Androids, but in the new in the new iPhones, you need 2 buttons to shut off your phone. So sleep, wake, as I mentioned before, you would just tap the unique button. That would change its state. It would either be awake or it would be asleep. To restart or turn off, to power off the phone, you would hold the unique button and it would bring up another screen, and from that screen you'd use a gesture to complete the power off or the restart. So on the new iPhones, the unique button now being 2 buttons, you would hold the side button and the volume either up or down, either one of them should work, and you would get a screen like this with some extra options on it. And at the top you can see slide to power off, and that's just a gesture that you would go across, and your phone would shut down. This phone in a shutdown state is using almost no battery. You could stick it in a drawer or a bag and come back in 30 days, you could probably turn it back on. In that state, you would not receive emails, you would not receive phone calls, no alarms would go off. It is, for practical purposes, completely turned off. Is there any questions on that? Yes.
So when you turn it back on, with the emails that you hadn't received while it was off, did they then load on?
That's right. When you turn it back on, then it gets connected to the network and it starts doing things. Probably a good analogy is like your laptop computer. You get to your place, you hook up to the internet, and things start coming in. You turn on your phone, things just start coming in. On any other phone, you're going to hold the unique button, like I said. The problem is on any other phone, where's the unique button? Every one of these manufacturers has done something different. What I can guarantee on any other Android phone is that that unique button is going to be on one of 3 sides. Somebody tell me if they find one on the bottom of a phone. I've never seen one on the bottom of a phone. It's either going to be in the middle or it's going to be in the top corner. I've provided some graphics here. Sometimes they group it with volume buttons. And so this would be the unique button because it's a little offset from the volume button. This would be the unique button because it's offset from the volume button. These other are without volume buttons. It could be up at the top or it could be in the middle. Again, I've never seen it at the bottom of the phone. But when you're looking at any device you pick up, you're looking for the unique button. When you hold the unique button, you end up with a shutdown or restart screen just like the Apple. On my phone, it's not a swipe, it's a tap. It shows me a button to restart and a button to shut down, and you just tap it and it does what you asked it to do. All right, I'm hearing a lot of cell phones for cell phone class. Do you want me to skip ahead to Do Not Disturb? I should have put that at, I don't know what I was thinking. That should have been the first slide, right? That's right, go into airplane mode. Well, okay, so the next thing on hardware I wanted to mention is about charging cell phones. And this really has changed our thinking about laptops and device charging. I'm not talking about power tools or car batteries. I'm talking about these information devices that we use now. These lithium-ion batteries are proving to lose life because of the way we take care of them, but it's different from what we've been taught in the past. We don't have a memory effect anymore. I'm sure a lot of you remember the memory effect, where you would unplug it at the wrong time and it would get singed into the earth and you'd never be able to get that battery back. And I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the draining the battery to 0 and then charging it all the way back up. Battery technologies in the past were pretty fragile and they were easy to damage. They had very short lives. The lithium-ion technology that we use now is very durable. It's very hard to screw it up. What it has is it has a short life. About just a little over 300 full charges. That's from 100 to 0 and then back again without affecting the performance of that battery. After about 300 full discharges and recharges, you're going to start damaging that battery. It's just gotten old. That material's just getting broken up. So I've put some points up here because this is the way that people should be behaving with their devices now. First of all, it doesn't matter if you have it turned powered off or powered on. You can plug it in at any time. It's fine. A cool, dry place. This is great advice for lots of things, not just charging your phone. Cool, dry place, whatever it is you're trying to do. As often as possible is true. You will not hurt your phone by plugging it in. You plug it in at your desk, you plug it in your car, you plug it in whenever you're sitting, you plug it in. And what you kind of build this lifestyle around knowing this device is going to be plugged in. And what the experts are saying now is you want to keep the phone charged at around 60 to 80%. At 60 to 80%, you could be looking at getting 3-4 years off of this battery, and it could be in top shape still. I mean, this phone could be handed off to a grandchild or a spouse and still be considered in good shape. This is important because a lot of phones now are being built so that the battery is very difficult to replace. So the life of that battery is something to think about, especially if you got a $1,000 iPhone. So what this means is you're going to have cables all over the house. Computer room, the bedroom, the kitchen, in the car. And it also means you do need to be conscientious of the kind of equipment that you plug into, because electricity is dangerous. And if you've got bad chargers, that could be bad for the health of your battery too. So I would purposely, I would use the charger the phone came with. That's the last charger that should ever cause a problem to the phone. That should be the best charger for the phone. But then I would look at Amazon reviews and I would buy some equipment that people are telling really good things about. And I brought a couple of things in here just to show you. We set up in our living room a charging station. There's my wife and I and 2 kids, and we're all digitally literate. And everybody has devices. Everybody has more than one device. And many times we're sitting around the living room and all 4 of us have cables running to this like an octopus. But this has six ports, 3 on each side. We plug this into a surge protector, and it's one of our charging stations. And these charging stations come in different currents. So some of your phones support a fast charging state, and you can buy charging stations that are intended for fast charging. They provide more electricity than other ports. This is another example. I just got this for Christmas. It's a surge protector. If you've got any portable stuff you're doing, I suggest something like this. And it's got USB ports on it as well. I would try to always avoid charging something in a digital device, like plugging into a laptop, plugging into some random USB ports. I would completely avoid those. What we've discovered with USB is that it's being compromised. And so to be on the safe side, I would carry something like this around instead of plugging into my chair on the plane. I would plug this into the chair in front of me and use that USB port to charge.
Can you get that on Amazon?
Yes.
I've got a question.
Yes.
How about the new electric plugs, receptacles?
They make me nervous in this environment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spikes.
Specifically here in Mexico, those make me nervous because there is no surge protection before them. And it's what you're really concerned about in this environment. Is it grounded? How's the voltage? And we always get surges. The electricity in Mexico is much more brute force than it is in the United States. In fact, if you ask me about, and we deal with a lot of electricity issues in our business, if you ask me about surge protectors and voltage regulators and battery backups, I pretty much always recommend you get that stuff down here. This is a surge protector I got off Amazon, which would be perfectly fine down here. But one of the things that I would not get off Amazon would be a voltage regulator. And it's because the regulation in the States is very fine-tuned. And so when you get a voltage regulator in the States, you pay about $100 for it. It has a battery in it. It's really mellowing out just the smallest imperfections in our electricity. Here, it's very brute force. I mean, we're like 4 or 5 volts difference up or down at any given moment. And so they've got voltage regulators that can really take a beating. and they bump it up 15 volts or drop it 15 volts. That kind of electricity will eat up a voltage regulator from the States, and you'll just watch yourself burn up a $100 device. So most all this stuff I recommend getting around here because they're priced for the Mexican market. If you're looking for a battery backup, they're called a no-break. I would buy a Mexican no-break before I would buy a battery backup in the States because it's got voltage regulation built into it. That's the big difference. In the States, we have voltage regulation built into the post hooked to your house. Here, you're in charge of your own voltage regulation.
Okay, so that one was purchased in Mexico?
This was, okay, so this is a surge protector. And surge protectors are the same, whether you buy them in Mexico or you buy them in the United States. And we are talking about smartphones, and I told you I like the digression. I've got all kinds of information. Surge protectors have a finite life. They get burned up. And so when you buy a surge protector, you're looking for a really high joule number. The lower the joule, the more susceptible you are to having problems. You don't want to buy a surge protector that says 400 joules. You want to buy one that says 1,700 joules on it. What the joules mean to us is that surge protector will have a longer life and it will protect you from a bigger problem. So the more joules, the more protection you have.
You might want to distinguish between surge protection and voltage regulation.
Oh, sure, yeah, I'm sorry. I forget, a lot of you aren't at the computer club. Voltage regulation is standardizing the amount of voltage coming out the wall. So to give you an example, I've got a voltage regulator right here on stage. I plugged it in because I checked the electricity in the Club Deportivo. It's 140 volts. They're going to get it fixed. They told me they're going to get it fixed. 140 volts is pretty high. In the States, we consider 115. We actually consider 110 to 120 to be a normal voltage, which means if you were to check the voltage in your house back home, I would almost wager it'd be 115 volts, almost on the nose, because we're really good at that in the United States. Here, not so much. Here, it's federally run. They've got different concerns. Mexicans consider voltage to be okay if it's 130 or lower. My rule of thumb is if it's over 130, I report it to the electric company, so they'll dial down the transformer so we can stop blowing light bulbs and burning out routers. So voltage regulation will take that 140 and drop it down to, I measured it at 126. Voltage regulation is important, especially in low voltage situations. We just recently had a power outage, a brownout in a section of town. Maybe that affected some of you people. A brownout is really worse than a blackout or a surge, because a brownout means that all your equipment is running at a lower voltage, and that's when things sizzle, because they can't move when they're supposed to move, or they can't power up to the power they're supposed to be. And so they just sit there and they sizzle, kind of like cooking an egg on low heat. It does a lot more damage to your equipment. And so a voltage regulator in that brownout situation should have popped the voltage high so that you could try and maintain your equipment at a normal voltage. Surge is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Where would you buy a voltage regulator in Mexico that was
Walmart.
Mexico?
Yeah, they are very available. In fact, I would check the Telmex office before going into Guaymas, because they typically have one or two sitting there ready for sale. But you can get them at Walmart, Soriana's, Lay's, JG's Computers. Every Mexican knows what a voltage regulator is. Every Mexican house has voltage regulators in them because they deal with these problems.
Yeah.
Grounding as well. There's no reason to get protection gear if you're not grounded and your electricity isn't any good. We're going to get back to smartphones in a second, but this is my regular shtick. You want a grounded outlet. You want the polarities to be checked and wired correctly. You want to have a voltage regulator on it, and you want to have a surge protector on it. That's the best protection you can have. And Chester knows, we were just talking about this in Computer Club on Tuesday. All this, if there's a storm outside, unplug all this stuff. There's just no reason to blow up your protection gear. The protection gear is there for when you don't have any control over it. When you've left the satellite dish plugged in and you ran to Hermosillo and we got a flash storm with lightning. Well, fortunately you have a voltage regulator, you have a surge protector on it. Hopefully no bad will come. But the worst bad would be it would burn up your equipment, your protection equipment. Any questions? Oh, yes.
I think you answered it, but I wasn't sure. Do surge protector get old?
Yes, and that's the thing about the surge protector is it has a life that is eaten up every time it protects you from a surge. So to finish this off, I'm sure Chester wanted to make sure I said this too. Get a good surge protector, not a bad surge protector. And a bad surge protector won't tell you anything about the life of it. A good surge protector will have at least a light on it that lights up and says protected. Throughout the life of it, as it gets gobbled up, as it dies, this light will disappear. When that no longer lights up, you toss it in the trash and you buy a new surge protector. And a lot of the things people are using around here are not surge protectors. They're circuit breakers. They don't have a protection light on them. The whole idea of them is to protect you from too much current. Protect you from drawing too much current. To give you a quick analogy, it would be protecting you from a blender if you're making margaritas next to your computer. That would work great. I would not plug a blender in next to your computer in the first place. So you don't need that kind of protection. You need much more finessed protection. And so that's why you need a surge protector and not a circuit breaker. Yes?
Okay, so if you have a Mexican voltage regulator,
Yep.
you still need a surge protector for Mexico.
You need a surge protector. Surge protectors are the same everywhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank
But the voltage regulator is from Mexico.
Okay.
Just for charging devices, you're recommending both of those?
I recommend them for all your delicate equipment. So if you have an entertainment center with a satellite dish and a flat screen TV, that's the setup you should have
For a
there.
charger?
Or for charging. Any of these delicate, fragile devices.
So you would do a surge protector and then a voltage regulator?
We just had this conversation, and no, you would do the regulator first, and you put the surge protector after, and I will justify that. When the regulator does its job, it introduces a surge into the system. So when the regulator is working correctly, and it has protected you by keeping the voltage at the right voltage, that hop that it has to do induces a surge into your system. And so the surge protector will protect you from that surge. Now the argument is, what's protecting the voltage regulator? I would argue my $20 is, because I can replace the voltage regulator for $20. But I'm more concerned about it producing a surge on my equipment. And I know the surge protector is going to protect me from a surge that gets past the voltage regulator. So I'm not worried about protecting the voltage regulator. I'm worried about protecting everything else. All right.
On the smartphone.
Okay, back to smartphones. But you can tell I'm really good at the other stuff. Okay, so charging a smartphone, there are a bunch of different cables that are being used. But the most common one is this micro USB cable. If you've got an Android phone, there's a very good chance you've got this charger, this cable. I'm not a big fan of this cable. I'm actually a really big fan of the iCable, the iPhone cable, the Lightning cable. And you can see just from these examples here, this micro USB, not only is that a single direction, that means there's a top and a bottom to it, but there's this wafer of plastic right in the middle of that port. If you plug that in upside down, you can break that wafer of plastic and then you have a major cell phone repair. Which, if you need to get a cell phone repaired, you should talk to me. My brother-in-law is just famous in Wymus. He is the cell phone hospital. So if you do this, call me and I'll hook you up with him. He will fix this stuff for you. So the micro USB I consider very fragile and it's standard at the moment. I love the lightning cable. You can see that there is no wafer in here to break. This is just an orifice. And this is the wafer and it's made out of aluminum. And that's reversible. You can just grab the cable and plug it in. You don't have to think about what up is or what down is. Either side works correctly. I think that's one of the best cables that we've ever come up with. But it's proprietary to Apple, and so we're not going to see it on any other device except for iDevices. And I don't even think Apple's going to keep using it because USB-C is what everything's going to now.
Yes.
And you'll find this on the latest Apple computers. In fact, this picture right here is a USB-C port from a Macintosh Pro, one of the new ones, MacBook Pros. Now, the advantage of this is great. First of all, it is a reversible cable like the lightning cable, so there is no top or bottom. You just grab it and plug it in. The USB standard allows for up to 100 watts to go through it. That's a lot of power. What that means is that one cable can charge your computer and drive screens and peripherals all from just one cable. And Apple adopted to it real quick with this latest generation because it looks very pretty. You can take one of their pretty computers and you can plug in one cable and it's charging the battery and it will drive 2 screens plus its own screen and speakers and any other peripherals, all just off of one cable. It is a great cable standard. The only thing I don't like about it is they still got this damn wafer of plastic right in the middle, which is still, it's harder to break because it's an omnidirectional cable, but it's still a sore point with me. I don't like anything that looks like it can break really easy. You just need some young grandkid playing with that cord and you end up breaking that. So the only other way to charge that's become popular is wireless charging, and this is really the future of things. Where I can say you guys are using a micro USB, a lightning cable, or a USB-C cable right now. I know that every device in here is one of those 3. Maybe nobody's doing wireless yet, but it's available. It's out there. Have you got wireless? Awesome. So the wireless stuff is going to get the wireless stuff is going to get really cool. We're starting to see products now, which is a little puck, a magnetic puck that you put on your visor or you put on your air conditioner vent, and you just throw your phone up against it, and it sticks right there with the magnet. And now you have your GPS and your mapping and your phones right there in your car, and it's charging that whole time. This mat was made for the iProducts, and Apple has already made their iPhones. This is their Bluetooth headphones and their watch, all wirelessly chargeable. And so at the end of the day, you just throw those on the mat and they just charge. There's some advantages and disadvantages. USB-C is going to be the fastest way to charge anything because of the ability to put so much power through the port. This wireless is slightly slower than standard micro USB charging. And then micro USB charging also, depending on your manufacturer, has a scheme for fast charging. But still, all of this combined is how we're doing things. And I am going to move on. This is another picture of all this just to give you you can really see this micro USB. If you ever wondered how you ended up breaking the port on your device, it's because you plugged the cable in upside down.
Tried.
Tried, it probably still works. If you were successful, you broke it.
Samsung changed that. It's reversible on the 8 and up.
That's right. The latest Samsungs are coming with USB-C. The latest iPhones are still doing Lightning, but their laptops are doing USB-C. So I suspect they're going to move over to USB-C at some point. And these micro USBs are going away. Yes?
White dot on the top of the of the plug there for the micro? No, it just goes on the cord itself, when it plugs in,
Yes.
always reminds you that that's the up.
Okay. So that is good advice, but there is no standard.
I know, but I put one on.
There you go. You just said what I was going to say.
Nail polish.
That's right. Nail polish, whiteout, something, a Sharpie. But yes, yeah, fine. There is no standard. There are cables that have some kind of graphic on the other end. So just to orient yourself with that. In fact, my goal in showing you all this is not for you to learn about the history of cables. I just wanted you to see and identify the cable you use. So when you're looking up here, I'm hoping you see the cable that your device uses and recognize there are other cables out there. If you're going to live the lifestyle of plugging in whenever you get the chance, make sure you're plugging into the right cable. Yes?
You can't overcharge a phone, can you?
Not anymore.
You used to be able to.
There was a period of time where we didn't trust our charging circuits.
Okay.
But and again, I'm going to say, I'm talking about phones that are 3 years old or newer. Any of these phones, the chargers are very smart. They actually, without your knowledge, they allow the phone to discharge from 100% and then recharge because it knows that'll help maintain the health of the battery. They also, like the iPhones are notorious for this, won't let you turn it on if it's too low. If it's completely dead, you got to plug it in and wait until the phone has decided it's got enough charge to start. And that's all about maintaining the life of the battery, keeping the battery healthy.
How do you know when your battery isn't healthy?
Test.
You know, that's a good question. I wish I had that on my list.
There's an app.
Yeah, there are apps. You can download an app that would tell you. Most of these apps can tell you what it's supposed to be rated at and what it's currently rated at. Another way you can tell if you have a bad battery, I mean, you'd end up using an app like that to verify. Because really the way you tell you have a bad battery is you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you're from 80 to 50%. I went from 80 to 50%. I only drove delays.
Yeah.
So then you're looking for, well, why is it acting that way? And an app can help you sort out whether it's at the correct current. It's actually in milliamperes. Yeah, I hope that answers that question. Is there any questions so far? Yes.
The previous slide, you had an Apple Watch, and you also talked about radiation before.
Yes.
And I was afraid to get one because that's on you constantly, and I was afraid of the radiation.
I would not be concerned about it with what we know now. At this point, I wouldn't. Who knows? I can't say what. I'm not a radiation scientist, but what I do know is that every time they do a study, we find out that it's less harmful than we imagined it was going to be. The kind of radiation we're talking about, like I mentioned earlier, really only does damage to us through heat, and that requires a lot more power than we're talking about. So, to the best of my ability to understand it, there's no reason to be concerned about that. Any other questions before I move on? We're still in hardware. I still got lots of other stuff. Yeah.
I have an S5.
Okay, or a 5S? A 5S?
Yeah, 5S. And it is
Aha, I say that. Is it an Apple or is it a Samsung?
No, it's a Samsung.
So you were right the first time. It's an S5. Yeah.
But it has a double. The charger is a double.
It does.
Can you use a
No.
No, you have to use the double.
Well, I'm sorry. Yes, you can use a single.
It's just slower?
It's not slower.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
No, in fact, that double, you probably got one of the original charging cables for it.
Right.
And Samsung was going to do something with that and never did. They were going to do some kind of accessory thing with it. And they just never did it. On your particular phone, and I know it because my wife's got the same phone, you only utilize one side of the plug.
Okay,
So
so I
that,
can use a different charger.
That's right. on your S5, you've got this port combined with an odd port. And you can plug in just to that one side and it'll work just fine.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah? All right. I've got to get to the do not disturb airplane mode.
Yes.
Okay, next on hardware, people ask me about SIM cards. And when they ask me about SIM cards, I think of memory cards as well. So this whole section here is just dedicated to the difference between these cards, what they look like, what to expect. So I've put together a graphic here that breaks them into two different sides. I know it looks ugly. There's a lot of information up here. No, it's very simple. SIM cards are communication cards. Before anybody asks, it stands for, I wrote it down, Subscriber Identity Module. Isn't that helpful? What that really means is that this is a card that's used for identification. With this card in your phone and your phone's unique ID number, the cell service can identify you and give you service. But always. That's the only way you can have service is if you're tracked. There isn't a way to do it without knowing where you are on the network or you're not on the network. SIM cards come in 3 different sizes right now. There's the original SIM size, the micro SIM, and the nano SIM. Apple uses a lot of nano SIMs, and actually there's a new SIM called an eSIM, and it's not even a card, it's a chip that's in a phone that can be programmed. This is what most Android users are looking at, and most iPhone users are looking at, unless you've got any of the new iPhones using an eSIM. This is just another iteration of the same idea. These are punch-outs, and what you can see here, this is an example of a card you might get at OXO. Because if you didn't know, you can go into OXO and buy a SIM card and activate a phone as soon as you get down here. You don't have to go to a Telcel office. You don't have to see a representative. You can just buy the card, put some money on it, and you can have phone service. If you were to buy the card, you'd get something similar to this. And these are punch-outs, and you'd punch out the size that you need for your phone. Down here is just a graphic showing you the size of these devices. I mentioned earlier I'm 48. I'm on my 2nd year of needing reading glasses to see these sizes. This is a SIM, standard SIM, and this one is a micro SIM. And this micro SIM is getting really close in size to the memory card. This is a micro SD card. It's actually part of the SD card family. And these are all different sizes that we've used in the past as storage. I put these little graphics up here to hopefully keep them straight. Those are for communication, and these are for storage. And when I say storage, what I mean is this is where your pictures are. This is where your videos are. This is where your ebooks are, and your music, and any of these other things you might collect on your phone. It's also, in an Android world, it's where all your extra applications get put. Android phones notoriously get sold with very little internal memory, and you're expected to supplement it with this extra memory. So if all you need to do is make phone calls, that cheap Android phone is great. But if you're going to take high definition video of your wife dancing for riscate, you've got to get one of these cards. Let's see. Yeah, before I go on, I just wanted to make a note. The SIM cards, you see this copper, or this it's not brass, it's actually gold. And you see this gold surface here. You see those contact pads. This is how it connects with the device. Those are the contact pads. On the memory cards, they're aligned to one side. And so that's a very easy way to distinguish. Seriously, I need the reading glasses. If you're dealing with devices that are this small in size, here's how you can identify them. These pads are for the communication card, the SIM card, and these lined up to one side are the storage cards. Also, the micro SD card has a little hook on it that you don't find on these cards over here. Yes?
You mentioned the memory cards were for Android phones, what about iPhones?
Well, they're not there. In fact, I will hit that in just a second. Let me get past these two slides here. I just wanted you guys to quickly look at if you needed to put a SIM card into your own phone, you typically do it with a tray or a slot. And so here's an iPhone getting a new SIM card. There's a tray in the side. Typically you gotta use a paper clip, pop out that tray and slide the SIM card into it. There's also phones that have slots. You pull off the back cover, like we see here. It hides behind, some of them hide behind batteries. You slide it into that slot, put the battery in, put the cover. This is a funny picture. I think that's from a BlackBerry. But this is a slot. You see, this picture actually is doing a good job of indicating that there's only one way to put the SIM card in. There's a notch on one side. So if you've got it in wrong, it won't close. It won't make the contact. I've got a similar slide, unless there's questions about this slide, I've got a similar slide for the memory cards. You can see they're so small that it's the same procedure. It almost looks like the exact same slide. Even the trays look the same. This looks very similar to my phone. I have a tray that has my SIM card for my communication service and my micro SD card for my storage. Both of them sit in the same tray and it gets put into my phone. And this picture over here shows a storage card hiding behind a battery. They've popped out the battery and it slides into that slot and then you put the battery back in. Somebody just asked me about what about the Apples. So unfortunately, the way Apple phones work is that if you want to upgrade the memory, you have to buy a new iPhone. That's all there is to it. Yes, it is the only upgrade path there is. So if you need more storage in your iPhone, you actually need a new iPhone.
So buy lots of storage.
Yeah, buy it.
Well, maybe. I mean, definitely think about your use case. And there's a lot of storage in these phones to begin with nowadays. It's the iPhones, I think they're starting at 128 gigabytes of space. And they're going up to a terabyte now. I think these brand new, I mean, they are $1,000 phones, but that's not bad to have that kind of space. I just saw an article that said that the first terabyte SD card has been released. So we're going to be able to bring that kind of space to your old Android phone without having to pay $1,000. So that's great. Yeah, that's a good question. How much is the card? I didn't see a price on it. I do have a 256 gig card. I think I paid $80 for that. So that's a quarter of a terabyte for $80. So yeah, maybe it's $240, something like that. Yeah, it'll end up being less. The way this stuff works is it comes out first, and it's extremely expensive, and there's slow adoption. And then it becomes standard. It's actually easier to make the bigger stuff than it is the littler stuff. And so it ends up dropping in price dramatically. Is there any questions on these cards? Because I will move on to my next section unless I have missed something vital importance to somebody. Oh, yeah, Jan.
How about if we all stand up for about 5 minutes and move around a little bit?
Sure. Okay. Okay, there's I would. I mean, actually, I'm my data hoarder, and so what I do is I just keep buying a bigger card and moving everything over to it.
Yeah, her box, the box's box, and her box, all the same way.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And I also, I use photos, and it does a regular secret service. So I've got a backup there. Okay, and you don't have service down here. You don't.
This thing, be out with it for 4 hours. You know, just sat and forth, back and forth. She wouldn't
My folks had the same thing. They switched over to set it to super cellular. They couldn't get no, you can super cellular.
Just go to.
You want to get a glass of water? There's a bar open.
Is that
On the back there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and the only exception to that would be when the community contracts to save us. You don't give up. But you spend so much time, you know, you should have North America.
Yeah, that's right.
A cup of water myself.
Oh, yes, this is tough. You may find yourself having to educate them because some people aren't aware that they can share their message without getting I had that problem for years because I had old self-complaint and I couldn't US got me around how am I doing for time? We've got I've got comments and then some other stuff. So I got stuff it can be rapid. How am I doing? Oh, good. Oh, thank you. Yes. I like the bunch in business, and I did say I don't have a Oh, yeah. It's more expensive. They're offering plans in 15, yeah. So those are faster than
But I didn't try our system and they said so I can use them. And I have my and they said, you're allergic but the South Tower said, if your alarm goes off, that it releases us in Washington is having a lot. And they got me every Monday, I got the same status. They got banned.
Glad you said that, because I forgot your address. Their service was from Mexico. Your experience is going here in Mexico. That's probably yeah. Hello, I'm back. And so are you. I'm going to just burn through the rest of it.
I just call up.
The next section in this I'm going to call common smartphone functions, or things you don't need an app for. These are the kinds of things that you should find in your phone. I expect all your phones to have these functions. You should be able to make phone calls and do normal phone stuff. You should have a contact list. That's a normal thing. Cameras and selfie cameras are a normal thing. Flashlight, you do not have to download an app for a flashlight. It is part of the operating system and it's part of your phone. So don't do it. Texting has been around for 20 years or more, and it should be on everybody's phone. Voice assistants. Yes, you can tell your phone to do things for you. If your phone is within the last 3 years and you paid $200 or more, you can talk to your phone and tell it to do things for you. And there's driving, maps, GPS. We're not going to get into a bunch of that stuff. Speech to text, I will say a little bit about. And music, you can always put music on your phone. There's always a music player on your phone. There are a lot of other features. A lot of you may have found that you consider those common features. These are the ones that I just thought, without a doubt, they're on everybody's phone. The phone dialer is an app, but it's typically not an app you're installing. In fact, there's something wrong if you're installing a phone dialer. This should be on your phone. If it's on an iPhone, it's going to look like this green phone, and if it's on an Android phone, it could look like that icon or anything else that looks like a phone. It could be anything on an Android phone. But there are concepts that are the same between the two platforms. This is a picture of an iPhone dialer screen, and down here at the bottom are the key ingredients that we're concerned with. As far as contact lists go, we're worried about favorites, recents, contacts, and then the keypad is actually what we're looking at here. When you're in the phone app, You hit keypad, it brings this up, and you can just, tap the number you want to dial. Voicemail is on here because it's on my graphic. Voicemail is a thing on iPhones which is really unique. On an iPhone, you can collect and organize and delete voicemail the same way you would email. There is a list of all your voicemail messages. You can listen to them over and over. You can actually pick them up and send them places, or you can delete them one by one. I have not yet seen that kind of setup on an Android device. If somebody's having that experience, let me know, because I'd like to know what's out there. But my experience with an Android device is if you need voicemail, you hold number 1 down until it calls your voicemail service. And you deal with it in that traditional voicemail way. Press 1 to listen to your latest call. Press 3 to delete, or whatever. So outside of voicemail, these other 4 items are very common concepts on any of your phones. And I'm going to go into contact lists and your favorite lists. And again, I've robbed a lot of this stuff. I should have said no copyright protection on any of this presentation. It's all robbed from Google. This is all iPhone stuff as well. And this is what a favorites list kind of looks like. When you hit the favorites button in the dialer, it gives you all the people you typically want to be able to dial on a speed dial. This is your speed dial. Now, from this screen, you can see there's an addition button here. On an Android phone, it might have a plus, or it might say edit. It might have, but it'll have some way of you to pull up your contact list and add a person to this favorites list. There are also, whether it's an Android phone or an Apple phone, if you get into your contact list and you're looking at someone's contact information, there's going to be an option to add it to the favorites. Now, this is the latest Apple phone, and it's got an option here that says add to favorites. But I've definitely used Android phones where it didn't say anything, it just had an empty star. And you just click the star, and the star fills with color, and that means it's on your favorites list. This is what it looks like on that Apple phone, add to favorites. So it could be a graphic, it could be a command, but when you're looking at a contact, that's where you do these things. You're able to add it to your favorites list. The recent calls list is a very powerful thing. It keeps track of all the phone calls that you've received, whether you've received them, whether you've made them, whether you've missed them. They're all in this recent called list. Typically, again, this is an Apple phone, but this is typical stuff you find on an Android phone. It would be something like this. There would be an option to look at missed calls. There would be an inventory of all the calls you've made or you've received. On this side, I don't know if you can see, but there's indicators, there's graphic indicators, whether you made the call or whether you received the call. On my phone, it's got arrows going out if it was me and arrows coming in if I received it from somebody. And it's in red if it was a missed call. You can see that there are numbers in here that don't have contacts associated with them. The recent calls list is a very powerful way of turning a phone number into a contact. In fact, the 2 functions you can normally find in a recent calls list is the ability to add it as a new contact or to add it to an existing contact. And you can typically do that through something like this. This right here on the iPhone, as well as the Android phone I have, has a graphic indicator here that if I click on it or tap on it, I get more information about that phone number. It's actually a contact ready to be built. And all I have to do is hit another button that says add as new contact, and I can start filling it out with somebody's name, their home address, their email address, all this extra stuff that you might want. Yes?
Quick question, is the contact list stored in the phone itself, or is it stored in the internet in the cloud somewhere?
That is a good question. Yes would be the answer to that, if you take my advice. My advice is that you pick a service to be your contact list host. And this is really, if you're an Android user, this is easy because you have to have a Google account to use Android. It's pretty ridiculous to try and run an Android phone without having a Google account. The Google account gives you access to an online email system, online contact list, online messenger. And so just by setting up your Google account, then you can use it for synchronizing your contacts. If you have an Apple phone, it's a bit of a no-brainer. Apple has iCloud, and iCloud can store your contact list. What I would avoid doing, and people will have their own opinions about privacy and security and synchronizing and using the cloud and all that stuff. But my advice is pick a cloud service to be your contact list host, because then you've got backups without having to think about it. You can bring that list of contacts to your other devices. So if you need that contact list on your computer, you just sign into your Google account on your computer. There's all your phone numbers, there's all your emails. If you've got a secondary phone you're using or a tablet, you sign into your Google, all your contacts are over there. It doesn't have to be Google. It's easy with Android because Google hosts Android. And so anybody that has an Android phone has a Google account. And it's easy on iPhone because most everybody that has iPhone has an iCloud account, at least the free one that gives you like 5 to 10 gigabytes of space, and you can easily hold your contact list there. And these things happen without you guys having to give it much thought. It's really a matter of just putting in the account information, and then after that, the contact list takes care of itself. It syncs at periodic times. You make changes on it, it synchronizes it up. It's a really nice way to, if you're having problems with your phone, what's really nice is to be able to just flash it to 0, set it up again, and have all that information come right back into the phone. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on that in that regard? Another question I got was to set a ringtone for a specific contact. When I was asked this question, I thought of my good friend in Alaska who has the Darth Vader theme set for his wife. So we're back at a contact. This is what a contact looks like. This contact's name is Apple Inc. And this is their phone number, and here's another phone number, and here's their web page. All information that you can collect on one of your contacts and keep in your contacts. On the Apple screen, and this will vary in Android screens, but on the Apple screen you can do things like start up a chat message with them or call them directly. These functions are built right into the contact listing. A lot of the Android stuff does that as well. If you're looking at a contact, you can click their phone number and immediately start a phone call. So from this screen, oh, this is what I should have pointed out. Up here in the corner is an edit. You're going to edit this contact, and it will bring up another screen very similar to this, where you can fill out this information. And down here is ringtone. When you click on ringtone or text tone, ringtone and text tone are the same thing, except one is for ringing phone calls, and the other one is when you get a text message. And it brings up a ringtone selections sheet there, and you can just pick whichever ringtone you want to assign to that contact. All right, airplane mode. Oh, no. Well, we are getting the airplane mode. Is there any questions on that? I just want to make sure I hit that question.
What about for Android?
For Android, it's the same concept. It doesn't look the same, but it's the same idea. You go into the contact list, and then you look for the option to add a ringtone to it. And I'm sorry to say, anything within the last 3 years, you're going to be able to do it. But there are a lot of Android phones out there, older ones, that just won't let you do it. They've got their own scheme for doing things. When the Android is up at version 9, what's very common in Android is 5, 6, and 7. 8 and 9 are still considered really new versions of the operating system. And if you're running an Android phone that's down at 4, then they didn't know what they were doing with it. Each manufacturer had their own idea what they were going to be doing with that operating system. So I wouldn't be able to guarantee an Android phone would do any of the stuff we're talking about right now. The Android 4 phone. We're in features, and I just wanted to quickly show off some ways of getting at features. This is an iPhone, and the iPhone has a control center. The control center is accessed by swiping up. You swipe up. When you swipe up, what you're doing is you are swiping across the margin into the screen. And when you do that, a control center appears. It doesn't appear on mine because mine's an Android phone. But it'll appear on the Apple phone. And you can see that some of these features, here's a flashlight right there. Turn it on and off. You don't need to download an app. Here's the camera right here available to you. There's also some other neat things on an Apple. There's a calculator ready to go, a stopwatch ready to go. If you're listening to music, you can control that. You're also able to turn on and off airplane mode, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, do not disturb. Yeah.
Will you define completely airplane mode to me, what it does and what it doesn't do to a complete dummy?
Sure. It turns off all communication in your phone. When you hit the airplane mode, it turns off all the radios in your phone. Your Bluetooth gets turned off, your Wi-Fi gets turned off, and your cell radios get turned off. So it is isolated from any networks.
But you still can get messages when you land the airplane.
Well, if you take it out of airplane mode. Now, on an iPhone, what you can do is you can put it in airplane mode, and then you can turn on Wi-Fi mode. So airplane mode would turn off all the other radios. You turn off your cell phone network, you turn off the Bluetooth, but then you could come here and you could turn on the Wi-Fi. And now it's like a tablet, because it's connected to Wi-Fi, you can access data, but you're not on the cell network. Does that help?
But it stores messages you might have gotten when you're at 30,000 feet.
Well, your phone doesn't store them, but services do until your phone's connected to the network again.
All right.
And then as soon as it's connected to the network, all those messages come into the device.
So what's the difference between powering off and airplane mode if they do essentially the same thing?
So powering off, you can't use your phone. You can't use it like a tablet.
Oh, you use, okay, so you can still use the.
You play games, you could write emails to send when you land, you read a book. Yeah. Yeah. That's the big difference. And on the iPhones, it has recently changed to this kind of layout. This is the newest phones. And what is really new on Apple is you can set up these things in your control center. And that's what I put here as a graphic of customizing the control center. And this is a list of all the things that could appear in this control center. And you can add them from the more controls. You can just hit the green button that would add it into the control center. And you can remove things you're not using by hitting the red button and pulling them off the control center.
Can you say that again, where that is?
Well, this is the new iPhone.
I've got that.
And you are in the control center customizing.
How do you get to that from here?
That's a good question.
Okay, just go to your settings.
If there isn't a settings button from there, you can get into
Control
settings.
Center. Yeah, it's on their customs. Customize under control center.
I see. So it's very similar.
I see. Okay.
I'm showing you. Oh, and let me just mention this one more time too. The iPhone, their lock screen, the newest lock screen, puts a flashlight button and a camera button on the lock screen. So you don't even have to unlock the phone to get out a flashlight or a camera. They're just right there, ready to go. This slide is dedicated to Android, which is very hard to do because you can see from these two shots, Androids can look completely different. But it is a similar idea, except here's the big thing, you slide from the top. And somehow they've probably protected themselves from some copyright protection or intellectual property protection from Apple because we're swiping from the top instead of from the bottom. A similar kind of control panel opens up, and a similar kind of behavior can be done. You can choose items to appear in this list. So like on my phone, I've made a conscious choice to put the do not disturb up in my list, the flashlight, a hotspot. These are the airplane modes, so that when I swipe, those are the first things that pop up in my list because those are the things I use the most. I don't want to spend any more time on this, but I did want to point out there's no flashlight on this lock screen, but Android phones always have similar things. Like we can get at the camera on this Android phone without having to unlock it, just by tapping that camera button. Speaking of cameras, there was questions about selfies and how cameras work. And the questions I got had more to do with how do you take selfies? Do I need an app? And you don't. Your phone should have a camera app. And how do you take selfies is really switching the camera. On all these phones, you have a front-facing camera, a selfie camera, and a rear-facing camera. And for you to do any of this stuff, you switch the view of camera. These are actually a number of different icons that represent the same thing. It's switching cameras. When you have a camera app open, if it's facing out across the audience and you want it to face you and take a selfie, you hit this button and it switches to the selfie mode. If you're in selfie mode and you want to take a picture of the dolphins, you hit this button and you're no longer looking at your pretty mug, you are looking at the dolphins. This is an iPhone over here, and the switch is over here in the lower right-hand corner. On this Samsung Galaxy S5, it's up here in the left-hand corner. Again, it's Android, so it could be anywhere. It depends on the manufacturer where this button is. But they all look similar. They have this kind of curled arrow motif for the icon. Another question I got was, how do you get into video and take video? On the Galaxy here, that's a take video button. So if I wanted to switch into video mode, I'd just tap that, and the whole camera would change into a video camera. This button would turn into a record button. And so you would just hit it, you'd start recording the video, and when you're finished, you'd hit it again, and the video would be done. On the iPhone, it's got a swipe menu under the picture. So you switch between portrait, video, photos, all these different modes that you can use the camera, and it's swiping across that list towards the bottom above the button. Is there any? Oh, that's very straightforward, clear. I think I hit how to take selfie, how to use the camera. No, I do not need an app for. Okay, yeah, I got everything. Onwards. What is that? Is that me? I got full battery. I don't know why it's. And I'm the computer guy. I don't know what it was. It's a surge. Don't scare me. Text messaging has been around for over 20 years. We've been using a system called SMS, a simple message something. I don't even remember what it stands for anymore. It is the oldest messaging platform. It is completely compatible with every cell phone over the last 20 years. It is archaic, it's insecure, and it's featureless. And it's all you've got in some circumstances. Apple didn't like it when they put out the iPhone, so they made their own hybrid version of it. They use a system that can send and receive SMS messages, but they can also send and receive messages across the internet data network. And that's a whole different system, and it's only available to iDevices. So an iPhone user has an experience where they're able to send and share and have capabilities with other iPhone users that they can't do with other smartphone users. So what got popular was a different messenger. And WhatsApp is one of the most popular outside the United States. The reason this got so popular is because it runs across it runs across the internet network. It's a data program. And outside the United States, many people would do pay-as-you-go, and they would have to pay for each text message. Each one of these SMS, I don't know if you remember, but there was a time we would pay 10 cents a text message. And then all of a sudden, AT&T's our best friend, and they're like, hey, you've got free text messaging, but we've moved on to web surfing. Text messaging, I'm sending emails on my phone, having Skype conversations on my phone. What do I care about text messaging? But back in the day, it was like 10 cents a message. And what people in Mexico and other countries learned was it's cheaper to buy megabytes in data than it was to buy individual text messages. Because data is much cheaper than individual text messages. And that's why WhatsApp became so popular, is because you could send a slew of messages back and forth for the same price of one text message.
Well, now it's free, right?
Well, and now so many of our services are free. Here in Mexico, it's very common to get a cell plan where WhatsApp and Facebook are completely free. Facebook, Twitter, and I should bring up Facebook. Facebook is the next one that's jumped into this. And these two apps are a recommended texting app. If you guys, especially the Android owners, are interested in a robust text client, one of these two are really going to be your go-to.
That's what I use.
Yeah.
Messenger.
Yeah,
But-
Facebook Messenger.
Now, is that using my data?
Yes, it's using your internet data.
But
do I
they
pay
allow it to be
extra
free.
for it?
If you have got, I'm not sure how it's working with the North American plans from the United States. If you have a Mexican plan,
I don't.
then it could be free. I'm not sure if that's what they're doing with the North American plans. But the North American plans, many of you have 8 gigs, 10 gigs of data, and that's an incredible amount of space for text messaging.
But I don't understand why I can't make phone calls or I can't text, but I can messenger, just like texting.
Oh, you can message because it runs across the internet
You have
data
to be-
network.
I know you have to.
So when you connect to a Wi-Fi hotspot, you're able to do your texting.
But that's free then. I'm not using my data.
That's right. You're not using your cell data. You're using internet data, but you're not getting it from your cell provider. You're getting it from your Wi-Fi provider. And you go into your house and you get Wi-Fi from your Telmex connection. Then that's the service you're paying for.
So I don't have to worry about
I have a
overuse of my
question.
data that I'm paying for
That's right.
monthly. Okay.
My daughter lives in Spokane, Washington.
Yes.
And when I call her, she calls me, it won't, even when I'm in the house, it won't go to my Wi-Fi. It stays on cellular, on
Oh,
Telmex.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But
Why?
I'm just trying to decide whether I should get into it or not. But what has recently happened in the American market is they've been offering these services where you can make phone calls across your Wi-Fi or your cell service. And so there is, and in a lot of these phones now, there is a mode that you can turn on and off.
It keeps dropping the phone call. I mean, every couple minutes it drops it.
What if you
So-
both go on WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Or Messenger.
I think this is your
You would
solution.
keep it,
You
make
should
a
be
phone
looking
call.
for an alternative solution.
Messenger.
And what I'll say is that these smartphones now, if you go into the Wi-Fi settings, there's typically this option for Wi-Fi Plus, and your phone is able to switch between networks depending on the quality you're getting.
Yeah.
So if you're getting poor cell quality, it'll switch over to your Wi-Fi network.
Drops.
And if you're getting poor Wi-Fi,
Which
it'll
I
switch
am.
over to your cell network. If you're getting poor quality of both, then it's up in the air and you're probably dropping calls on both of them. It's a very complicated and convoluted topic, and it's
So is
beyond.
there a way to make it better?
I don't have a solution for it. I do like the idea of why not try WhatsApp
Or Messenger?
or
video?
Messenger, because they also offer video
And
and
it's
voice
good,
calling
it's good.
through these services.
Okay.
Works
Yeah.
really well
I just wanna
for
ask
me,
a
and
quick
I'm in
question,
western
and that is on
Montana.
WhatsApp.
It's just
Okay.
And that
And
is
it
when
works
you,
So
well.
Messenger?
add,
Messenger.
and go to add a group, because you wanna put somebody on WhatsApp, so
I do.
it doesn't come up with your full telephone contact.
That's right.
So why can't I go into my full contact and get what I want?
Okay, so what has happened? You have an Android phone.
No, I have an iPhone,
You have an
and it
iPhone.
won't bring up my full contact list to add it into WhatsApp.
It's got to be a permissions issue.
All right, then I'll figure that out.
It's got to be where WhatsApp doesn't have permission to look at your contact list, and it will be a switch. It'll be just an on and off thing. And I've seen it on the Android phones. I didn't realize that it was a convoluted thing on the iPhones as well. But yeah, it will be a granting of permissions that you need to do, and then it will propagate that whole list. Where are we? WhatsApp,
One
Messenger.
question before you go.
Oh yes.
My question earlier was the same thing. When we're using our phones now that are on the North American plan,
Yes.
sometimes we have to add the one and sometimes not.
Yeah.
And you said that changed right now.
The one and sometimes not.
When you
Plus
The-
one or
The
plus-
plus one.
No, we don't use plus one, just one. And those
Okay.
are my contacts, my regular contacts.
Yeah, so what I can tell you is that the plus one would be for the United States and Canada. The plus 52 would be for Mexico. And the plus is replacing the gateway. So to connect to another, to it. And so
A
you've got.
year ago though, our system could call each other,
Mhm.
and add nothing.
Right.
Just like if we were sitting right next to each other. Now this year, it's just been nothing but, drop calls or, for communication, and we have to recall and stuff like that.
So tell me again, the situation, is it a US cell phone calling?
The US cell phone sitting here.
Which carrier? Which carrier?
Verizon.
And what are you calling?
Any of my contacts in America.
In America? Yeah, you would have to use plus one to do it.
We didn't have to last year.
Yeah.
Didn't have to do it, as of January 1st.
You don't need to.
You don't have to use plus
Or 001.
Plus
Well,
one.
no, but we do have to. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Right now, it just switched over.
Yeah, I think that is the norm now, is plus one, plus area code, plus phone number.
I just take my contact and it,
Well,
as if I were in the US.
You know what I'm forgetting is that a number of phones have this intelligent contact list. They have this way of knowing your local location and changing your dialing. So if
Yeah.
you've got it written in the contact list
Dial
correctly,
assist.
and it knows where you are, then it knows how to send that number out. The iPhones are really good at that.
Yeah,
stuff.
well, I understand that part, but all of a sudden, we can't, that's not, you can being available to it.
Yeah.
Mexico made a change.
They did.
When did they do that?
What?
When?
I can't,
Yeah.
it was recent. What it did is they're removing the 044 call,
Oh, is-
045. and
That's
that-
still working.
It still works, but they're in the transition, so it's a Mexican change, not on your phone. Okay, that is the reason for the change. Mexico is changing how to dial. Does that make sense?
Hey, it's just a change.
Well, when we first brought the iPhones down here,
Yeah.
we had trouble.
I find nothing more frustrating than going to something that worked yesterday to find out it doesn't work today. And unfortunately, in this world, the way that's how this technology works. It's just a change. They're in the middle of making 1,000 changes for different reasons that have nothing to do with you, and this is what the result is.
Well, and what's hard here is you got your contacts, and so if you gotta add one, you gotta go through every one of your contacts and
And they add one, yeah. And I've
And add-
definitely gone
add
through
two
that
numbers,
myself.
You
Yeah.
know, for each contact.
Yeah.
One without the one and one with the one.
Well, maybe. I mean, it depends on how
Well,
things are
and
working,
there
yeah.
again, some calls go through and the next time they won't.
Can we move on, because I'm almost done. Yeah.
WhatsApp and Messenger, did you say those are secure or they are not secure?
They are secure. In fact, these are some of the features that WhatsApp and Messenger allow you to do. And actually, messaging from Apple lets you do it too, but only to devices, only to other people that have iPhones. You can send files, pictures, videos, you can voice and video chat, you can have groups, and you can have encrypted conversations. The WhatsApp starts out encrypted. The Facebook Messenger, you actually have to set up encryption between you and each one of your contacts. But what that means is that the only place that that conversation makes any sense is either on your phone or on your friend's phone. In between, it looks like gibberish. It's encrypted. And so these are all features that we were hoping for in Messenger, and that's why so many of us have adapted one of these as our main texting. Another thing that's very cool about these messengers is that they will go through your contact list and see if any of your contacts use these services. So you can immediately get access to other people that are using the same text. And that was a problem we had with alternate text messaging systems in the past, was you had to know somebody that was out there. These will actually go find people based on your phone number. So these are easy recommendations to get into if you want to do texting and sharing with people.
But the other person has to be using WhatsApp too.
That's right. That's right. But what's nice about these apps is that they will go find your other people that are using it. So it'll put that right in front of you. When you install the app, it'll look through your contact list and it'll show you all the people that you could be texting with.
But if you want to contact somebody through WhatsApp, you just tell them, join WhatsApp.
Right.
And you can contact them. Because now I talk to my friends in the UK and Spain and everywhere else on WhatsApp.
It is a great app. I'm sad to think of what's going to happen in the future because they're promising us advertising and all kinds of garbage. Tracking.
Moving
Right.
on.
Yeah, let's keep moving. What all do I have left here? Let's see. I got 5 more slides. Are you guys still with me? Yeah. Okay. All right. I want to take just a second to talk about blue versus green on the iPhones. You guys, anybody that's doing iMessaging has seen this. You got blue and you've got green bubbles with the people that you text with. And the blue ones indicate that your messages are going through the data network. They're going through the internet. The green ones are indicating you're using traditional SMS. If you're getting green messages from iPhone to iPhone, you've got a problem. Somebody didn't pay for their service. Somebody's gone beyond their data plan. You don't have internet. This green bubble should be for iPhones to other phones.
Right.
If you're using traditional messaging with iPhone. The blue bubble should be indicating iPhone to iPhone.
Different on Android?
If it's iPhone to Android, it's going to be a green bubble on your iPhone. If it's iPhone to iPhone, it should be a blue bubble indicating that it's going across the data network. Yeah, the SMS is almost like a fax technology. It is really going through the voice network when you send those messages. That's why they've got a different pricing scheme and it's a different technology. So I'm going to just whiz past this. We're still doing features, common features. Voice Assistant is a common feature now. These are things that you can do with your phone. Right now, if you are looking for features, you could always ask your voice assistant. You could ask it for translations. How do you say 2 beers, please, in Spanish?
In Spanish, that's 2 cervezas, por favor.
Wow.
take a photo.
Hold up the mic.
So I told it to take a photo and it opened the photo app. Right? I could say take a selfie, it'll open the photo app. On the iPhones, I think it actually flips the camera around and gets you in selfie mode if you ask for a
Did you do
selfie.
that on OK Google?
I could use OK Google. I used a Google button on the Android phones. There is a little circle in the middle at the bottom, and if you hold that, you invoke the voice assistant. On the iDevices, it's the home button. You can hold the home button, and you can talk to Siri. On iPhones and on Android phones, you can set these to be running all the time. If I were to say, hey Siri, there's a good chance some of your iPhones would just go off because you have it on and you don't know it. Or I could say, okay Google, and there's a chance some of your Android phones would just go off because you don't even know it's on right now. So you can set it. Mine isn't set to be on all the time. I see a confused look back there. Can I answer a question?
Your voice assistant.
Are you on Android?
Android.
Okay, so if you swipe up from the bottom, it'll show you those 3 buttons. Swipe up. Swipe up, and you should get some buttons up from the margin up. There you go.
Yeah, but I've got to get out of here.
I don't know what here is. I gotta get out of here too.
Okay. Yes, go up.
Okay, so you need to be on a home screen. That looks like a lock screen.
You're gonna Google.
So do I unlock it?
Yeah, unlock it. And then what you want to do is hold down the circle button in the middle of the 3 buttons at the bottom. Just hold it down.
Which one? All 3?
No, just
Just the one button.
the one.
We might have to look at your Android specifically.
Okay.
But there are navigation buttons at the bottom of the Android screen. If you don't see them, on an Android, you can swipe up from the margin, and it will bring those buttons up. And it's the middle button. You just hold it, and it will invoke the voice assistant.
But you have to be connected to the internet in order to use Siri.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but
You have to be connected to the internet to use the voice assistant.
How can you use Siri?
You're not connected
You're
now.
not connected to the internet.
I'm connected to the internet.
How? Oh, you already.
Through the cell
But he's
network.
got it there.
Well, no, we don't have Wi-Fi, but I'm using Telcel to be connected to the internet.
So you're getting your data on Telcel.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I got like 8 gigs. I mean, I got plenty of data. We can watch YouTube videos if you want. So, some other things that you can do with a voice assistant. Find me a gas station nearby.
I found a few places within 1.8 kilometers.
So it's brought up the map. It shows the Paymex and the Arco station on it. I can follow through on the map and get navigations from here right to the gas station. If I'm en route to a destination, I can tell my mapping, find me a gas station. It'll put them on the map. I can select one and add it to my route. And so that gas stop is part of the stops that I'm making along the route.
Will it tell you the price of the gas too?
That's a gas buddy. That's a gas buddy.
Yeah, there is some of that. I'm not ready to demo that. I'm trying to look cool here. It might work.
And you're not gonna get on the internet.
Here's some other stuff. This is the end of my presentation. And so I've just got a bunch of little stuff that I wanted to cover right here at the end. First of all, the reason these goofy graphics are all over here is because I consider some other stuff to be more stuff. And if you look at these are more icons. This is called a hamburger menu. If you didn't know that, you don't really need to know that. That's what developers call it. It's because of the patty and the buns. It's called a hamburger menu. If you see this in an application, that is a menu. If you click on it, it'll bring out other options in the app. And so I'm just taking a moment to point this stuff out. This is called a more menu, these 3 dots, and they can be arranged like this, or like this, or like this. And there's more stuff under those 3 dots. So when you're looking at an app and you're trying to figure something out, you're trying to exercise these concepts, and you're not seeing the thing in front of you, you might be seeing something like this, or something like this, and that's where you would find more stuff. So if you're looking for settings, you're looking for some place to add it, you're looking for a new option, click on one of these things and you'll find more stuff. Some of the other things that I was going to mention real quick is sharing, app stores, and voice to text. And I got another graphic here for sharing. I don't know if you guys want to look at this stuff, but I did want to point out these sharing icons. Whenever in these apps you see things like this, that's all about sharing the data in front of you. So this is a Windows 10 share. That's like that's a Android share icon. I don't remember whose that is. That's an iPhone share icon. And it's all the same concept. You're looking at some data and you want to share it in some manner. You either want to give it to somebody or you want to give it to another program. And so when you click on one of these, you end up with a menu very similar to this. It has an overlay that pops up, and it shows you a list of places that you can share this. Okay? This may not matter to you. You may not want to share an article with a friend on Facebook. But this will matter to you because this is also the place you find things like printers. You got your phone, you're hooked to a Wi-Fi network, you're looking at the email, all you want to do is get a printout to hand to your buddy. Well, you go into share and you'll find the printer listed there. And the remarkable thing that's happened in the last 15 years is it is much easier now to print to a wireless, mobile-capable printer than it is to print from a laptop. And it used to be just the reverse. It used to be that setting it up on the computer was really easy, but getting it to work on your phone was nearly impossible. And now it's all flipped. And it's the same chore to get it on a laptop, but getting it on your phone is really easy because all these new printers support mobile devices. So you ask to borrow your friend's Wi-Fi network and you put your tablet on it. There's a very good chance you have access to his printer immediately because you're on the same network and the printer's capable. So these are ideas of things that would pop up when you hit the sharing screen. These are Android screens. They all look different. This is an iPhone screen. They all look the same. And you just hit one of these icons and brings something like this up. You can pick an email client to send it to, somebody an email, or you can send it to your messenger. I use an app called, what is it called? Wunderlist, which Microsoft bought and they've threatened to kill, but they haven't killed it yet. It's a to-do list that I use. It's a checkmark list. I use it for shopping. I use it for packing. I use it to prepare for the computer club. And what I end up doing is I'm surfing through articles that I think would be useful in club that I want to bring up. And I use the share icon in the web browser to send it to my Wunderlist. So it takes the link and a synopsis, and it just moves it over to my to-do list, which is a completely different app made by a completely different company. So sharing. From your photo gallery, you can bring up the photo of your daughter or your grandson, and you can hit the share button, and you're on your way to putting it in email to share with some other family member. Is there any questions on that?
Tons.
Yeah? Yeah?
How about that, but when is it, how often do you clean up your screen? You know, all your...
Whenever it's sticky. Say that again?
Does it lessen the strength of your iPhone?
No. There was the very first capacitive touch screens had some issues like that, but that's not been an issue in a long time. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about that. I would say you want to clean. I clean stuff with a mixture of alcohol and water. Yeah. just rubbing alcohol in water.
How many drinks do you take?
You don't want me cleaning if I'm drinking. A quick thing on app stores. The app, you don't have any choices for an app store on Apple devices. You use the Apple Store to download your apps. It's actually one of the key features in being such a secure platform is they vet all their apps, or they supposedly vet all their apps. And so it's very unlikely that you'd get an app that would do damage to your equipment or steal your identity, things of that nature. Google's trying to do the same thing. Amazon's trying to do the same thing. They just do not have the reliability that the Apple App Store has at the moment. On an Android, because I pointed to these two over here, on Android, you can very easily get apps from anywhere. You're not locked into this App Store, which comes with almost every Android device. And Amazon is an app store that you have to add to your device. It's not typically there. But you can, there's a whole market of different app stores that you can buy apps from. That said, I would steer you away from anything but Google Play, because I would always like to hold Google responsible for any hacking that happened to my device. I would not want some obscure app store to be the culprit for why somebody got a hold of my ID. Even though they don't do as good a job vetting, at least they vet. In fact, to install the Amazon App Store, you have to turn off the security of your phone. You have to say it's okay to let some unknown developer install some program from an unknown source. You have to flip that switch in your settings just to get the store installed. And then every app that comes from that store, you need to do the same process to get it installed. So as novices with smartphones, I would not recommend using anything other than the Google Play Store, at least for right now, because there is at least some vetting and you know exactly where your app is coming from. There is a want to install as few apps as you need. And I would encourage you to behave like that. Every app you add to your phone opens another security vulnerability. So it's always good to try and find an alternative to adding an app. What we've learned recently is that these apps are collecting all your movements, all your data. Our whole culture is about selling us advertising now. And this is big business. This is, it makes so much money. It's just, there are apps out there that won't sell themselves to you because they would rather advertise to you. In fact, as you're looking at apps, I would suggest that if you have a free app, check and see if there's a paid-for app, because that could indicate to you the quality of the developers you're working with. If they've offered you the alternative to advertising, they might be a higher quality developer than ones that are just throwing programs out there, knowing that they've got eyeballs to advertise to. You don't have to look at their advertising. Their app on your phone gives them your metrics, and they sell those metrics. So when you add apps to your phone, I would say you want to know what you're adding, right? Read reviews. If there's a way to do it without an app, that's the preferred way to do it. Do it through a web page. The apps really, you want to minimize. I guess that's what I'm trying to emphasize. You just want to minimize the number of apps that you're putting on your phone. Yes?
In your presentation, use the word kids. Keep it simple.
Yes.
Stupid.
Yes. Keep it simple.
And then you don't get into as much trouble.
That's right.
It's just one simple little rule.
Oh, yes.
Well, this is not really a question, but more of a suggestion. I noticed that a lot of people that I mentioned this to don't know of its availability. But a lot of us, because we drive the same boring road between here and the border a lot, like to listen to talking books. And it's easy to put one down here on your smartphone from your library. You don't have to pay for it.
Yes, yes.
Overdrive.com, now they have Libby or something like that.
Libby's good, yeah, that's the one I'm
I've got
familiar with.
3 library cards in the United States, and I download all my Kindle books and all my talking books onto my smartphone, play them right through my sound system in my car, and I don't have to, buy DVDs or CDs.
Right. No, that's great. I just recently, we got a Kindle for my eldest daughter, 'cause she's an avid reader. And we learned all about our library card in Alaska, and we had access to all those digital books. And what was nice about Libby is that they immediately, you could just say, send it to my Kindle.
Yeah.
And it would go straight over to the Kindle app.
And Overdrive is the same.
And yeah, I think Libby uses Overdrive.
This is just kind of maybe it's a little bit more user friendly. But you never have to pay for a Kindle or audiobook again.
Yeah. Oh boy, I'm almost at the end. Speech to text, totally doable on your smartphones. Look for a microphone and a keyboard. If you click this button, you can just start talking to the keyboard. The keyboard will start typing. It is so accurate. I seldom type messages any longer. Almost always voice type them. In fact, sometimes I get angry because I'm sitting in front of my laptop and I just want to talk to and I'll pull out my phone and start doing emails from my phone. Because it's easier to talk to my phone to get it typed out than it is to type it out.
That's it. Spells words differently.
Everything with voice to text is all about keyboards. And so it is a keyboard that's installed. It's integrated into the iPhone. You'll find that microphone. This is a voice keyboard that is installed in many Android phones. So you'll see this if you switch to the voice keyboard. And so you'll be talking to this dot. But it's all about keyboards being able to hear you. I wanted to leave you guys with some recommendations for applications. First, you heard my recommendation, have as few applications as possible. That's the best security you can do for yourself. But there are apps you can't live without. One of the ones I've learned I can't live without is Google's Android Auto. We were talking about this in Computer Club this week. This is one of my favorite applications. What this does is it allows me to use my phone on the dash of my car very easily. It changes the interface into big, easy-to-press buttons. It's got fat fonts, so it's very easy to read what's going on. It takes items when you're driving that you would like to have displayed in front of you, like your media center, your mapping, and your phone call organizing, all in front of you. And it's just a button away. And programs are written to be compatible with Android Auto. I listen to a lot of podcasts. My phone did not include a podcast player. One of my favorite podcast players is Podcast Addict, and it is compatible with Android Auto. And what that means is that when I go into Android Auto and I'm driving down the street, I can bring up Podcast Addict from Android Auto, and it gives me big buttons for looking through what I want to listen to, and big buttons for playing, and stopping, and rewinding. It also, if you end up spending too much time looking at your phone, it freezes everything and gives you a message saying, look at the road. It's compatible with Google Maps, and when it's running in this mode, you're driving, OK Google is, the voice assistant is activated, so you can start talking to it. So you can give it a destination. You can say something like take me to Tequila's. And it would plot out the map, and you, without having to hit another button, would just wait, and the navigation would start. That's the default, is when you ask for instructions to some place, it gives you that place, and then it starts the navigation. So it starts telling you, turn right at such and such a street as you're driving along. Yes?
English or Spanish?
You know, it's funny around here because my phone's in English. I ask for directions in English. Like I'll say, take me to Cinemex in Wymus. And it tells me the roads in an outrageously horrible English accent. But it knows where it's going. So I recommend this Android Auto if you're a driver. If you want to put your phone on your dash and use it for mapping and entertainment and taking phone calls. One of my other favorite things with it is I'm mapping, I'm watching where I'm going, I'm seeing how long it's going to take to get to my destination. Somebody sends me a text message. I can touch the text message and it will speak it to me. It will ask me if I want to reply to the text message. I can say yes or no. If I say yes, I can dictate the reply. The reply is very accurate. These are skills you should spend some time playing with because it is so accurate, it will change the way you use your phone.
But it uses data.
It uses data. You're right. It all uses data. It's a good argument for having data on your phone.
Isn't it
Apple
similar?
CarPlay is the app for Apple iPhone.
That's right. I have no experience with CarPlay, but I do know that it's supposed to be the equivalent on iPhone. If any of you start playing with CarPlay, I would love to hear about your experiences because I'm not going to buy a $1,000 phone. But I want to know if people are making it work.
Does it Bluetooth work similarly? Bluetooth?
Well, Bluetooth is referring to a connection. And this isn't, I mean, you can connect your phone to your car. Your car can support Android Auto. It's a different, yeah, it's, there's a big difference there. There's a distinction there that's different from what we're talking about. But it's a similar system. So these are the kind of things that I first recommend. Try your voice assistant. Your voice assistant, you can ask what the peso is today. In fact, I got some examples here that I was going to use as demos. If I can get into my phone here. What is the dollar? Oh. Yeah, I know. What is the currency exchange? No, I'm saying that wrong. Let me try that again. What is the dollar to peso exchange rate?
1 United States dollar equals 19 Mexican pesos and 12 centavos.
How much is $20 in Mexican pesos?
20 United States dollars equals 382 Mexican pesos and 39 centavos.
See, if you've got data, you can do that on the fly anywhere.
Yeah.
How do I get to tequilas?
The best way to get to Tequila's restaurant and bar by car is via Camino de los Yaquis and BB, Manlio Fabio Beltrans. It will take about 5 minutes.
Giving me the map. I click on the map and it'll start the navigation and it'll drive me there.
So that was Android Auto that you were just using?
Yeah, actually I was using the voice assistant, but the voice assistant is available in Android Auto. So these are my suggestions. You know, you can use the voice assistants for translations too. We already showed that earlier, where you can translate ordering beer. But this Google Translate is great. You can type into it. You can speak into it. You can point a camera at a sign, and it will try and translate that sign in real time on your screen. So Google Translate's a great one to play with. If you like podcasts, this is my favorite, but if I'm on an iPhone, I just use the iPhone podcast app. It's just Android phones may or may not have a podcast app, and this one's an excellent one, Podcast Addict. I put Magic Jack up here. Somebody was asking me about Vonage earlier. I'm not a Vonage user much anymore. It's a very expensive service, but I still have a Magic Jack. It's a very inexpensive service. One of the beauties of Magic Jack is that their app on your smartphone will ring at the same time as the device.
Yes.
Yes, I got a confirmation. So what that means is I've got a Magic Jack in the office, and if somebody calls us on it, they also call my smartphone, my wife's smartphone, the kid's smartphone. They all ring at the same time. So I think Magic Jack's great for that. This last one, the Computer Club people probably are familiar with it. This is a pretty cool app that has been created by a service called Cloudflare. And what it does is it redirects your DNS lookups to 1.1.1.1. There's a whole class we could give on DNS lookups on the internet. What I like about this, it's encrypted, so nobody else is paying attention to what you're looking up. If you don't know, a DNS is like a phone book. You don't know what the number is, but you know what the name is. So you go to it, you type in CNN.com, and it comes back with 146.557.349, blah, 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 and it connects your computer. It's kind of like you had to go to a phone book and look up somebody's name to find their phone number. So with this app, you're using Cloudflare's DNS, their phone book. They've encrypted it. This stuff has never been encrypted before. So when you would go look up CNN.com, probably your internet provider or somebody in the middle is paying attention to all the things that you look up on the internet. Every time you look up Amazon, every time you look up Outlook.com, every time these things are all being kept in a log, and so it's encrypted. But the other thing that I like, because it's Cloudflare, so you got a little bit of privacy there. Because it's Cloudflare, these places that you look up are typically physically closer to you than the actual DNS you're using right now. So by using this app, you can actually increase the speed of your internet experience. So you increase the security and you increase the speed under most circumstances. The third thing that I love about this app is when you turn it on, when you press the button, it comes up with a full screen and it's got one switch on it, on or off, which is exactly how something like this should be used. It should just be on or off. Turn it on, you're faster, you're more secure, or it doesn't work, so you turn it off and you go back to doing what you were doing before. There's nothing complicated about it, nothing to set up, you just turn it on or off.
Can you explain that? So you have an app.
Yep.
You press it.
I'm talking about this particular app.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
This
So
1.1.1.1.
Is that the app?
That's the app. The app is 1.1.1.1 Safer, Faster Internet from Cloudflare, and it's available on iPhones and on Android.
and how and why would I use that?
Okay,
to
so
go to CNN.
well,
or it's a DNS.
it's a DNS service with encryption, and because of the nature of their company, there's a very good chance that you have faster access than your typical DNS. So the end result is it's probably faster and it's definitely more secure for doing these lookups.
Okay, I guess I just have to.
So instead of going to Google and typing in.
I'm sorry, I probably have confused you. You're not doing anything different on the phone. You turn it on and you use the phone the way you normally would.
Oh, so I'd still type in.
Yeah, you'd still do your Google searches, you'd still check your email, you'd still use Messenger. But what's happening in the background is your lookups are going to a different service.
Okay.
So it's on all the time then?
Yeah,
I mean,
you just have it on all the time.
So in other words, if I'm going to JJ's and it's, his internet and I want it to be, it would be more secure than if I had it on. I'd be happy to, this is a deep topic. And so there are, yes, to answer your question quickly, yes, but there are different security concerns in that environment than this. Okay.
This is one of the least of your concerns.
Is that
in
a
those
free app
environments.
or not?
It's a free app.
Okay.
And they offer it because they have this huge network of cloud infrastructure. And I think the reason they've done it is to just get their name out there because they compete with Amazon for developers. And if people didn't know their name, they wouldn't be able to, they wouldn't have any market share to sell on. All right, I have hit just about every topic I wanted to. I'm at the end. I am open for any question you have, computer, smartphone, living in San Carlos as a gringo, any questions? Yes.
Okay, I have this new smart car that's smarter than I am, and I don't know how to use it, but, I love the hands-free calling and all that kind of stuff. How do I get my contacts through the cloud? Is that the best way into my car?
Into your car? Don't you Bluetooth your phone with your car?
Yeah.
So your contacts should be readily available.
Through my phone, through the car.
That's right.
Just like call because
Yeah, you should literally be doing like call Scott Stimson, and it should look it up on your. What am I looking at? Oh. My friend Richard provided us with the music to begin with, and I have his car keys plugged into the side of my car. Thank you, Richard. Thanks for all the help.
I'd like to reconfirm that I can call on my Mexican landline in my house to the States, the United States, with no charge.
That's right. Now I can confidently say that if you've turned on your phone this year or within the last couple of years.
It's a rental house. I don't know. It's been an ongoing phone for
I think
years.
that's normal now.
Is it normal?
Yeah.
Telmex.
They used to say
I
like
think it's
100,
anywhere
they said
in
100
Mexico,
minutes, I think, at one time.
Yeah, I think it's U.S., Canada, Mexico. Anywhere in U.S., Mexico, and Canada. I think you're right. I think it is like 100 calls.
Yes.
Per billing.
Oh, per billing.
But then it's incremental fixed billing. It's like that 10 cents a call after that, something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Scott, I went down there to the phone company and asked them about 800 calls. And they said you can't do that.
Yeah, you can with these instructions.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I was saying before is true. You will pay whatever you pay to call the United States. So if you're getting free calling to the United States, these might even, if you call an 800 number, you might even get a message saying, this is going to be charged at your regular rates. It is an English message, so it's on that side of this connection.